Welcome, dear friends. I'm Father John Deere, and welcome to this Beatitude Center Zoom session with our very special guest today, Zoughbi. You're going to find a lot of other wonderful upcoming Zoom programs at beatitudecenter.org. Let me just remind everybody to please mute themselves and to write questions and comments for Zoughbi in the chat link. I'm hoping our friend will speak for about 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments and reflections for another 45 minutes, and then we'll send out the recording link. So let's begin with a little prayer before I introduce our guest. And so I invite you, if you'd like, to take a little moment of silence, and let's all together enter into the presence of the God of peace who loves us infinitely. Just take a deep breath and relax. And welcome here the nonviolent Jesus into our hearts, and ask for all the graces that we need for peace and love and nonviolence for ourselves and our poor world. Beloved God, thank you for all the blessings of life and love and peace that you give us. Be with us now and bless us as we reflect together with our friend Zoughbi on the struggle of Palestine, the Israeli occupation, and your path of nonviolence and justice. Inspire us, energize us, and send us forth to do what we can as your holy peacemakers, your beatitude people, your servants and apostles and prophets of gospel nonviolence, that together we may help build up your global grassroots movement of nonviolence to end all the occupations and injustices and wars, and welcome your reign of peace and justice and nonviolence here on earth. We ask this mighty blessing in the name of the nonviolent Jesus. Amen. So welcome again, dear friends. I'm delighted to welcome and introduce you to an old friend of mine who I first met, I don't know if you remember, in 1989, I think, in Santa Cruz, California, where we were both staying for a while. And we visited with our friend Danilo Dolci, the great Italian nonviolence activist from Sicily. Remember Danilo, Zoughbi?
Yes, of course.
So that was a great time. And the last time I was with Zoughbi, I've been to Palestine several times, but was just at Christmas with Marie in Rome at the Vatican at a global conference on nonviolence. So it's great to be with him today. He's a legendary Palestinian Christian activist and teacher of nonviolence who's coming to us live from his home in Bethlehem. Really, thank you for doing that, Zoughbi. As you know, the US-backed and funded Israeli occupation of Palestine continues to crush our Palestinian brothers and sisters with ongoing home demolitions, human rights violations, killings and violence of every kind, a horrific dividing wall, even as Israel itself, like the US, moves deeper into fascism. I've been to Palestine and Israel repeatedly throughout my life, and I always return convinced that we North Americans need to learn what's happening there, because our nation funds the Israeli occupation, which both Jimmy Carter and Desmond Tutu, among others, have repeatedly compared to South Africa's apartheid. So it's a great blessing to have one of the great voices of peace with us. Zoughbi is the founder and director of the WIAM Center, the Palestinian Conflict Transformation Center in Bethlehem, and as well as just now recently the president of the Global International Fellowship of Reconciliation, which is the oldest peace group in the world, over 100 years. And if you haven't visited, check out the website i4ifor.org. WIAM, which is in Bethlehem, is widely recognized as a leading place of nonviolent conflict resolution that serves Palestinians in the day-to-day struggle for justice and peace and nonviolence. So it's a great honor and blessing to have our guest with us. Once again, friends, I ask you to be really present and attentive and mindful and listen to our great guest, and to think of questions you want to ask so that you'll be ready to share what you learned today with others so that we might all do our part. So everybody join me in giving a very rousing show of hands and applause for our special guest from Palestine, Zoughbi. Zoughbi, dear friend, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see all these shiny faces. I see God in your faces. I am uplifted to meet all of you and everyone by his or her name, by her title. I'm uplifted to see that there are people who care about the situation. By itself, it is a message that we are not alone. I am uplifted also because I see friends from the north who, could be, we say, sheltered, and they shouldn't be bothered by our cause, but they are interested to listen, to know what is going on. And this is really, I'm shivering with hope to see you all, to see different names, and also the godmother of my kids also being there. So it is lovely to see you all. And to be with you this evening, and I hope that I can live up to the introduction. I am humbled by John Deere and by all of you. I like to read a verse that it is my favorite in the Bible, from the 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, 8 to 10. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Always bearing about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our body. This is our situation. Troubles, distress, despair, persecution, occupation, all of that we face. And, every day is a struggle by itself, on the personal level, on the family level, on the community level, on all levels. And every time we thought, okay, next month will be better. Next year will be much more good news. But sorry to tell you, things are getting from worse to the worst. And it is difficult to tell you the facts on the ground because people would like to see some hope. People would like to see some good news. The good news is that you are here. The good news that there are people who are concerned about the situation. Nowadays, we are living in a situation that, the Israeli government, which is the most right-wing government ever in the history of Israel. In 1948, when Israel was created, it was founded by people who are more liberal, who are more secular, some of them atheists, some of them agnostic, and there are some who believes. But nowadays, the majority are right-wing. And the government that it is formed, it was more right-wing than Netanyahu. Netanyahu was right-wing. Now we have Smotrich and Ben Gvir, who are really the most fundamentalist Israeli Jewish group, an extremist, who don't want to see us even. They couldn't imagine that we exist. Even we are living in the occupied territories, but the matrix of control create a different synergy. They really have a policy to exterminate us more and to destroy all of our lives, economically, politically, socially, religiously. They wanted the land without us. But they don't make it very clear. But their practices witness their racist ideology. Racist ideology on all levels. Even the Palestinians who live in Israel, there are 2 million, always in the Israeli government, whether right or left, whether they are, of course, no justice there, allocate some money for the development of these towns and cities and villages. But Smotrich, the Minister of Finance, say, we will not give any piece of money to the Israeli Arabs for the development of towns, cities. And they say it should be going to the settlement movement. Look at that. They deal with Arabs inside Israel, or some people call them Arabs of 1948, where Israel was created. And they were before the state of Israel. And they were not recognized as a human beings. So they say all the money allocated for these local councils will be taken to the settlements and to the settlers to more settle the occupied territories. And many of it, if not a good percentage of that money, comes from the taxpayer in the States. And so this is a policy to give a message to the Arabs inside Israel: you are not wanted, you are not needed. Imagine what will be the message to us who live in the occupation, who live under the occupation, who live in a place that every day we see that Israel is taking land, is building more settlements, is confiscating more areas, is building checkpoints and barricades, is killing young people. More people are killed everywhere. In the past, we were able to argue with the soldiers when we are in demonstrations or going through the checkpoint. Now you cannot argue. A bullet will be straight into the person, head or heart. So the situation is very terrifying. And inside Israel, the crime level is escalating among Arabs. 144 or more people were killed since the beginning of this year. And according to the Israeli intelligence, 70% of these people who are killed, arms by the Israeli intelligence were supporting them, the criminals. You know, and there are lots of weapons here and there. In the West Bank, the situation is not better. So far, the number of Palestinians who are killed so far this year is more than the people who are killed in the whole year last year. Israel is escalating its violence, demolishing houses, imprisoning young people, of course, expanding the settlements, building more units in existing settlements, and creating new settlements. Almost Israel in control of 60% of the West Bank. You know, and the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem makes almost 22.3% of the historic Palestine. All the Jordan Valley is under the Israeli control, and more settlements will be built. The Bedouin villages like Khan al-Ahmar and other places are under the threat. The schools were destroyed. Economic development has been strangled. Many of these agricultural areas are used for training of the soldiers of the army. And the whole West Bank became islands of tears, let me put it. Every governorate is under attack. Many Palestinians, especially young people, are killed and liquidated under the pretext they are a threat to security. Palestinians are not allowed to leave their homes in certain areas because threat to security. Palestinians who have families are not allowed to be united. I will tell you more about my family because of security. So in a way or another, the whole world hasn't witnessed such a kind of catastrophe. And this will go on. And the world is watching us. Few months ago, there was an attack on Ukraine. The whole world jumped to arm Ukraine, to support them by honey, by money, by weapons, sophisticated weapons. And look at the double standard of governments. And if a Palestinian child throw a stone, accused of terrorizing, accused of being fundamentalist, and the whole governments in the world support Ukraine without limits. Billions of dollars are spent there. And even the refugees of Ukrainian origin were treated differently than any refugee in the world. That doesn't mean I am against to treat refugees very well, but I am against the double standard, how they treat people differently. And I hope Ukraine will be independent and unified. At the same time, I like to see an end to the Israeli occupation. Nowadays, Smotrich and Ben Yafir, two ministers under Netanyahu government, are trying all of their best to liquidate the Palestinian ambitions for independent state, for creating an apartheid regime without calling it like that. And all the laws that they make, and all the practices that they make, Palestinians are not allowed to build in Area C, which is according to it is part of the Palestinian land. Palestinians are not allowed to build in Area C, and any structure is built, any farm, and even trees are uprooted. And Area C is almost 60%. If you make a calculation, 60% of the 22%, that was the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, you will have like what happened in South Africa. The Afrikaner control all South Africa, left for the Black people 13%. And even we don't have the 13% in our land to be free for us. We have islands and separated from each other. And whenever the Israeli would like to stop anyone moving from one place to another, they will stop it without any problem. Checkpoint, a jeep of army. And they don't allow us to move freely. They don't allow us to go to our fields in Area C. They are not allowed us to import, export freely. So it is a war on all fronts, economically, politically, socially, and religiously. And we see what is happening against the holy places, whether Muslims or Christians. And lately, the Christian churches, Christian clergy are under attack from the right-wing Jewish groups. Look what happened in Haifa. Extreme Jewish people go to the church of St. Elias, in Stella Maris, and they want to claim it because they say this is the birthplace of Elisha. It is a Jewish prophet for them. So religiously, also they want to have the third temple. And, you know, they don't want to see the Dome of the Rock or Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the temple faithful members are working hard to lay the cornerstone of the third temple. And especially nowadays, they say all the conditions for that are ripened. The red heifer is around here. The Jewish population have been already in this land. Jerusalem under the Israeli sovereignty. Jerusalem annexed, and it became, according to them, the unified capital of Israel, unified eternal capital. So why we should wait, they say. We should start to build the third temple. And I hope this will not trigger any religious wars, because if this happens, it might trigger a religious war. And either they win a seat in heaven or conquer the enemy. For me, I don't want to conquer the enemy. I don't want to have a seat in heaven. I like to enjoy life. I want to celebrate life, not alone, not as a Palestinian, not as only Christian. I like to celebrate it with Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and to enjoy the freedom to build a safe haven for us and to be in coexistence with our neighboring countries. The situation is not helpful. We thought that the quartet will help to have the Palestinians and Israelis settle that conflict. And you know what I mean by quartet. United States, Russia, UN, and the European Union. But the quartet is not able even to do anything. The Europeans are busy with Ukraine. Russia is also busy with its war. UN has no teeth. United States, as a government, is biased towards Israel unconditionally, no matter if Israel is a Jewish extreme state or a secular state, whether Likud or Labor or the center will form the government. United States always have strong relationship with Israel. Every year, $3.7 billion as aid from the government, besides weapons. More than $20 billion comes from the private sector in the United States to Israel. So we see that the world has disappointed us. The government has disappointed us. And we see that the number of prisoners are increasing. You know, 70% of our population are under 30 years old. So 1/3 of the male population have been in jail since 1967. 20,000 women have been in jail. You are talking about a captive market also. You talk about people live in big prison and small prison. There will be no growth, no vitality, no safety. So we are talking about every day has a new kind of laws and restrictions to choke us more and more. And every day I can hear the Israeli jeeps in the neighborhood imprisoning people. Sometimes they take kids 13 or 14 years old. And sometimes they take older people. And of course, many of them are imprisoned under administrative detention, you know, and this is, you know, you don't know when will they be released, because it's, according to the British emergency regulation laws, every Palestinian is guilty until proven innocence. And the authorities, the Israeli occupation, can take anyone and put him or her in prison from 4 days to 6 months, renewable to 5 years without any kind of court. So in the past, Israel was more, sensitive to the public opinion, to the world opinion. Now they don't care, and no one can stop them. The Red Cross is not as used to be. The UN is not as used to be. The international organizations, the presence of them are weakened, and Israel could prevent people to come here to be in solidarity. They can prevent any European, any North American to come here. And of course, the Arab world is moving to have normalization with them. And I have no problem if the Arab world will normalize with Israel after the liberation of our people, after the occupation is ended. To have now normalization without any kind of rights to the Palestinian people, it is shame on all of the Arab world. So the Arab world is paralyzed, and lots of conflicts in the Arab world. The Muslim world is dormant, and of course, more conflicts in the Muslim world. Europeans, there's the big conflict. And in Africa, we know what is happening in Niger now. And we don't know, will it lead to more regional war there? And whether the Western governments will stop colonizing these places, or it will wage a war in order to keep this kind of capitalism, this kind of colonial power over the weak. So I don't know where we will see more light at the end of the tunnel. The Palestinian people at this moment are hopeless and helpless. And we used to say, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And many will come to me and say, there is no tunnel and there is no light. And this is really the situation. Nowadays, the young people are taking the issue by their hands. They are not listening to factions. Many young people think they can do a change. They create new groups, brigades, Lions Den. They sell things belonging to them in order to buy guns, and at the end, most of these young people are killed in cold blood. And but still, those young people take the initiatives by themselves, risk their lives by thinking that there will be a new way of life. But it's sad to see we have funerals almost every day in different places in the Palestinian area. Needless to say about the challenges locally. It is a very hot days. Lots of resources are not there. Many people, especially in Gaza, don't have electricity. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough water. With this hot weather, it is the most, terrible weather we have. A few weeks ago, when we don't have enough electricity, or when the electricity is cut off, it is not possible to live and to have air condition or fans. So needless to say, the water is cut. I didn't have water for the last 3 weeks. The water does not come every day like in Israeli settlements. We have tanks to fill our water, and this creates internal uprising. You have the water in tanks settled for a while, and then you'll drink from it. It will create stones. I have nowadays, what do you call it, gallbladder stones. Earlier, I have the stones, now gallbladder. And of course, because of the stress because of the weather conditions, because of lack of water. And this is, you will see young people have lots of problems. Many young people have heart attack, stress-related, sicknesses on the rise. I haven't seen a lot of people die when they are young as it is now. They have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, kidney problems, needless to say about the cancer situation, which is increasing in our towns and villages. Some of it because Israel bury nuclear waste in the south here in the Hebron area, Dhahriya. Some of it because the tear gas that maybe in Michigan produced someplace, and they are not allowed to be used in closed areas. And the Israelis are using it every time. And so people getting sick because of poison food, because poison lead, and so on. So the situation is very gloomy, and it is getting worse and worse. And who cares? And the matrix of control by the Israeli on every level. Economy, politically, roadblocks, socially, and a lot of families are not able to live together. Palestinians in the West Bank marry a Palestinian from Jerusalem, they couldn't be together. If one from the West Bank marry a Palestinian from inside Israel, a Palestinian from inside Israel, they cannot live together. There are bureaucratic, there are many policies to prevent the family unification. For us who marry outside Palestine, I have been married since 1990, 33 years. Up till this moment, Israel hasn't given my wife or me the family unification. My wife is not allowed to be back. She left in January, and the Israeli told her, you should apply for COGAT, the coordinating office of the governmental activities in the territories. And if you apply, we'll respond in 50 days. So it has been more than 100 days, and they don't respond to the telephone. They don't respond by email. And on top of that, what happened? They told her that you didn't apply. And my wife challenged them with my son. No, we applied. And then they say, oh yeah, you sent the wrong application. And those people send her a new application. And when it is open, it is the same application. They sent, when my wife sent back, say, this is the application you gave me, and it is the same as I sent it earlier. They say we will respond in timely fashion. So far, we haven't listened, or we didn't hear from them any response. Although the American administration talking about reciprocal approach, Israelis and Palestinians, that the Palestinian Americans could really come without visa to Israel and the occupied territories, in order to give a chance for the Israelis to go to the States without any visa. And then we call and ask about it. They say, but your wife is not Palestinian. Come on, what do you want from us? We have been married for 33 years and not allowed to be with me. And in the past, every 3 months to have a visa. They were renewing the visa for 4 times, and then they asked her to leave. Nowadays, even they didn't renew it for 1 month or 1 year lately. So this is how they want to evacuate the Palestinians. They want to kick us out you know, when I read an article for Norman Finkelstein talking about Oslo as the last conquest, I was not happy with Norman. I said, no, there is a chance for peace. There is a chance for living and coexisting together. But it seems what he wrote is prophetic. And he talked about different stages, that what happened to the Native Americans by the federal government of the states, Israel is doing it here through liquidation, through encirclement, through destruction, and so on. So this is the situation even on the family life. And when my wife was coming here for the wedding of my son Lucas 4 years ago, the Israeli didn't allow her to be in Tel Aviv airport, to come through Tel Aviv airport. So they sent her back to the States. She tried to come through the bridge and they didn't allow her. Israeli human rights interfered. Many people interfered. Haaretz wrote about it. Clergy, rabbis, they didn't allow her to come, even through Jordan. At the end, the Vatican, as representative here, was able to pressure them to come. And the Israeli allow her based on 5 conditions. One is that we should pay $20,000 to guarantee that she will leave in 3 months. I'm talking about wedding 4 years ago. And the second, not allowed to come through Tel Aviv airport except through Jordan. And she has 3 days to cross the states to come to West Bank. If she was not able to do it, she will not be able to cross the border. They're not allowed to work, not allowed to drive a car. And, you know, not able to work. Look at that. They want also to fight against our own economy as a family, you know, especially when we have 4 children at university at that time. Until this moment, they are studying, except my youngest is working, and Rafiq, who is engineer in Chicago. So they try to choke us economically. But thank heavens, through you, we have the resilience, we have the steadfastness, we have the power to continue to struggle non-violently against the occupation. So she left after 3 months of the wedding, and they didn't give me back the money. So 20,000 still in the Israeli budget, Israeli, what do you call it, bank or whatever. So anyhow, I'm not alone in that sense, but I have the worst scenario for 33 years of marriage. On the other hand, if anyone claims that his mother or her grandmother is Jewish, can come and live in any part of Israel, Palestine, regardless to his spouse or her spouse, and to work and move and so on. But those of us who might have more Jewish blood than the new immigrants or all the Jews are not allowed to live in peace and in security and to enjoy life. So this is, in a way, a taste of what is going on here. I will talk a little bit about nonviolence, if that's okay, after I take a sip. I believe in the nonviolent movement, although it's not easy. For me, nonviolence is not only a belief or a theory, it is a way of life. It is based on my faith in Jesus Christ, and also taking a lot of people as my example. And some of you are one of them, you know. or many of you are many examples for me. And nonviolence is not something that really you choose but not practice. You live it, practice it, and I don't preach it. I gave the example to my colleagues, to my compatriots. And of course, when we talk about nonviolence, as Martin Luther King says, if you want to change things, you need the 3 S's: to struggle, to sacrifice, and suffer, if you want to change the things. And so it is a way to struggle. And through nonviolence, we have different messages to the world, that we are people who would like to live and let others live. A message for the Israeli side, that we want to coexist. A message to the local people, that we don't want to see the dialogue of arms, but we want arms of dialogue. And nonviolence was and has been one tactic and strategy for the Palestinians. And the Palestinian struggle from the 30s and before, protesting against the Ottoman occupation, against the British mandate, against the Israeli, has been one way of struggle. Palestinians use 2 methods among many: armed struggle, which is not more than 3% or 5% of the struggle of the Palestinians, and nonviolent struggle. And sometimes Palestinians don't like the word nonviolence. So many times I use the word popular struggle or unarmed struggle, because many have been watered down the meaning of nonviolence by using not nonviolent struggle. They use, we should use to be pacifist. And there's nothing wrong with pacifists, but here the terminology might mean that perpetuating the status quo, and the status quo is not healthy. So I use the word unarmed struggle, use the word popular struggle. It means action, it means activity. And we use it all the time. I remember reading about in 1936, we have 6-month strike, different times, different tactics. The first intifada, recent intifada in 1987, it was non-violent struggle. The second one, relatively non-violent struggle. And there are still many pockets of non-violence in the occupied territories. The student struggle who go to universities despite of the checkpoints. The farmers who go to their farmland, whatever is left for them to farm is everyday struggle. The women's who struggle in different way to keep their household in the absence of their spouses or husbands or sons who are in prison as part of the pockets of non-violence here and there. But the problem, Israel is not responding. And many Palestinians will come to me and say, even if we have formed a new government with the Prime Minister Gandhi, Religious Minister Martin Luther King, Social Minister Mother Teresa, Israel will not give us any inch. This is the pessimistic point of view. But for me, no, we need to continue in the struggle. I remember I started, thinking of that method from early age when I was in school, 12, 13 years old. I used to write graffiti on the wall. I practiced different methods of nonviolence, what Gene Sharp talked about it and others. Up till this moment, I practice it, and as we am, is part that really train young people in nonviolence and also practice nonviolence. And our office is a witness of nonviolent struggle against the occupation. We are located just at the wall where His Holiness the Pope prayed over the wall, and every day we have some bullets, some tear gas, some sonic bombs. There is no single day will happen without any kind of attack on the neighboring houses and imprisoned people. So I think in order to make the non-violent movement successful, we need 3 dimensions of the struggle. The Palestinians to continue their non-violent struggle using the proactive approach to get rid of the occupation, to engage all Palestinians, regardless to their class, regardless to their faith, political affiliation, religious background, social background, academic background, to be unified, to continue their struggle using the different methods. Nowadays, we are talking more about 400, 500 ways of nonviolent struggle. And of course, if we are determined and have the perseverance and the resilience to continue, the situation will be different. But this will not be alone. We need the second dimension of the struggle. We call it the preventive approach of the Israeli peace camp. The Israeli peace camp and pro-justice should continue their approach of nonviolence, preventive nonviolence, to help their government to get rid of being the occupier. Although the peace camp in Israel is getting smaller, weaker, but they still ray of hope. And I think the Jewish community, the American Jewish community, and the American and the Jewish community in Europe are much more progressive than most of the Israelis. They give us hope also. Jewish Voices for Peace in the States, different groups here and there give us hope. And they need to have very determined approach and to help their government to get rid of the occupation and to stop the right wing from really endangering Israel more and more. Look at the demonstrations every week in Israel. Thousands of people here and there. And we need that to ring the bell of danger on all the areas. Imagine that those folks in the Israeli right-wing government continue. What will happen with the changing of the law and changing the different approaches in dealing with Israeli Jews, with Arabs inside Israel, of course, with the Palestinians who they don't care.
Hi, how are you?
The third dimension is people like you, third party. And the third party is a big constellation, lots of groups, lots of coalition. And what is needed from the third party? To empower the weak, but to bring the strong to their senses. We don't want the third party, including UN, peace camps here, interfaith groups, I4, Pax Christi, to bring the Israelis to their knees. We believe in restorative justice, how to redress the wrongs rather than avenging it. We want the collective responsibility to be acting, and these 3 dimensions of the struggle, the Palestinian to have their proactive approach, the peace camp to have a preventive approach, and the third one is people like you, UN, different groups, to practice and to act and to create pressure on Israel to get rid of the situation. Otherwise, nonviolence will not work, to be frank with you. The Palestinians will not be able to do it alone. because the matrix of control is much more stronger than any power here. And if you look at it, when we started the peace process, there were 100,000 Israeli settlers in the occupied territories. Now almost 1 million Israelis are living in the occupied territories. And with this government, Smotrich and Beni Gvir and Netanyahu, they like to have another 1.5 million settlers in south of West Bank, means Bethlehem and Hebron, because there is a war of demography. The number of Palestinians who live in historic Palestine and the number of Israeli Jews who live in historic Palestine, means Israel and Palestine, West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, are equal. What they can do? We are not going to disappear. We are not going to let them subjugate us forever. We want freedom. And of course, gone the time of wishful thinking. The reality that there are two groups living in this area, either to live together or perish together, you know? And I love what Mahmoud Darwish, our poet, said. The conflict is a clash of narratives. And of course, there are not only two main narratives, Israeli main narrative and Palestinian main narrative. There are sub-narratives in each area. We have the narrative of Hamas, we have the narrative of the PLO. Israel has the narrative of the right wing, the narrative of the opposition, the narrative of settlers. So I think it is the time to be realistic. There will be no future without really having a dialogue, having a negotiation, and we want pressure on Israel because, as you know, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and Israel an absolute power in this area. And Israel is the fourth military having nuclear weapons. Israel is the most powerful in the Middle East. Israel in alliance with Uncle Sam. So Israel trying to say no one could dictate what we do. But in fact, the division within Israel will create it to a different synergy. The division and, you know, almost thousands, hundreds of thousands of Israelis would like to immigrate and leave Israel. And of course, Palestinians are immigrating. And imagine that all the middle class, open-minded people leave, what will be the future? There will be clash of fundamentalism, regardless that, yes, we talk about occupation, but of course, you know, there are extremism growing in the state of Israel. And many of them, they say we should give a plague to those who kill Palestinians. And of course, if they behave like that and demonize the Arabs and the Muslims, of course, there will be a reaction. To every action, there is a reaction. So I think nonviolence should be the only way to struggle, unarmed struggle, popular struggle, to give a message to the Israelis, to give a message to the world. And of course, we need this kind of solidarity from international movement, from the peace camp in Israel. The problem is, let us admit it, NGOs and groups in the world are not as used to be strong. When we talk about E4, we talk about it in the 60s or 70s or even the 90s, much more stronger. When we talk about Pax Christi, we talk that there is stronger movement earlier. If we talk about Operation Dove, if we talk about international solidarity movement, there were much more stronger and they gave a message. And Israel was sensitive to the presence of the international movement here and there. But it is not anymore sensitive to anyone, you know, and international presence is not as used to be strong. The international organization are afraid also of the Israeli new policy, you know, and so I don't know where will be the solution, where it will come, if the Ukraine issue will continue like this. Israel find it very, very easy to do its policy, maybe to deport more people, to create already wedges among the Palestinians, and to create more conflicts, more division. And of course, they like to see the land without people and move forward. So at this end, I am not against Jews. I'm not against even Israelis. I'm against the occupation. Occupation is evil. It doesn't demoralize us only. It demoralizes Israeli Jews and demoralizes international Jewish population and the whole world. We need to put an end to this conflict based on international human rights, Fourth Geneva Convention, 242-338, and the Palestinians to be, having their own safe state, safe environment, and coexist with others. Otherwise, we will enter in years of conflict, years of religious conflict. And when we have religious conflict, it's not easy to stop it. It is easy to start it, but not conflict. And we know what happened whenever there are religious wars. It is a call for the international community, for all people from different religious backgrounds, to put an end to this conflict. If there will be no peace in Jerusalem, there will be no peace in the Middle East. And of course, it will affect the whole world. Probably I stop here, opening the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Zoughbi, for your moving and clear presentation and all your wisdom and sharing the suffering of your people. You said that you will live together or perish together. You called us to do what we can to help end the conflict and to put pressure on Israel to end the occupation. And so we're grateful for that. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I want to first see if any of my friends or longtime activists wanted to ask Zoughbi anything or comment. In particular, I'm thinking of Shelley and Jim, or David Hartso, or Marie Dennis, or Chet and Elaine, if you wanted to raise your hand or wave at me or unmute yourself and jump in and ask Zoughbi a question. Marie, were you trying to get through or no? Okay, I lost Marie there. Oh, there, go ahead, Marie. Unmute yourself if you can. Okay, can't hear you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Zoughbi, for all that you shared. I am particularly struck by your reminder that how important it is to talk about nonviolence as a powerful form of action, not as somehow passive. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about whether there is, I hear what you said and understand that Palestinian action has been nonviolent, that the predominant approach in Palestine has been active nonviolence. Could you say a little bit more about whether through WIAM or other efforts, there is an organized effort within Palestine to launch a nonviolent, a form of active nonviolent conflict, if you will, or if that is just impossible, and with the level of repression and the level of violence being done to the Palestinian people.
I believe still Palestinians at large conduct lots of unarmed struggle, nonviolent activities. And there are different pockets in different governorate. But it's not easy to coordinate it all and to be a unified front. You know, I mentioned about the workers who work inside, that goes early in the morning at 3 o'clock in order to work, or the farmers, or the students. And as I mentioned, to be frank with you, not to be very romantic, that we will be able to do it alone. We need the other two dimensions, the pro-peace camp in Israel and the international community, the third party, to empower the locals movement. Because with the matrix of control, Israel divided the West Bank into many reservations or ghettos, and just need a jeep and 5 soldiers, and you can, you know, stop any kind of communication, transportation. You know, this is the first, for example, time in history that Bethlehem is separated from Jerusalem. Bethlehem and Jerusalem was a lot of movement, we were twin cities, if I'd like to say. Nowadays, you know, you cannot go except from one checkpoint if you have a permit. And many times they close the checkpoint, they say it is too much hot, or it is too much cold, or we are not in good mood to continue. Even if you have programs to travel abroad, if you have to go to hospital or wherever, the matrix of control that Israel is practicing is beyond our imagination. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have a unified front of nonviolence. And the problem is, whenever there are new leaders, charismatic leaders, who would like to lead us, Israel either liquidate them or deport them or put them in prison, you know, and then accuse them of inciting against Israeli Jews by violent attacks. And the problem is, again, no one say to Israel, it is enough. You know, in the past, we used to hear more criticism to Israel, and now the Israelis say, if you criticize us, you are anti-Semitic. And if a Jewish person criticize and condemn Israeli violence, self-hating Jew. So again, we need to coordinate the efforts, and I appreciate what Pax Christi is doing. And His Holiness the Pope, he really is firm about his position regarding Jerusalem, about the new developments of the Israeli government. But still, the Christian world has failed me with all the attacks on Christian churches and Christian. Many priests are, you know, are spat on, many nuns, and they are not condemning it. While if any Israeli or Jewish place, synagogue attacked in anywhere, the whole world will rush to condemn it. It is time to raise our voices, not because we are Christians, but to be against any desecration of any holy place, to be raising our voice against any attack on a religious figure, no matter what religion, and to work for justice and peace. And really, I am appreciative to all of your struggles. I am walking in your shoes, you know. you have been in the struggle for different places. And as Martin Luther King says, any injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And we need to
Thank
work
you,
for
Zoughbi.
justice.
Let me see if Jim Douglas, did you want to ask her a comment or say anything? I can unmute you. Okay, we'll go to Jim Douglas and then David Hartso and then Elaine and Chet. Hi, Shelley and Jim. And Jim, you know Zoughbi.
I do know Zoughbi. I love Zoughbi.
Hello, Jim.
Zoughbi, you are the example of nonviolence to us all. The key to what you are describing, we know so well, many of us who are watching this, is our own country, the United States of America. Without the United States of America's support, everything you described would be totally different. So it's a big question as to, I think, I mean, not to ask you what you should do differently. You can't do anything more than you are doing without being 30 more people. It's to ask, I think, ourselves, especially those of us who are Americans, how we can understand in action what you are saying in terms of the total responsibility that we have for what you are describing. And I just don't know how to answer that, except to say that that's the key. And whenever I see, for example, a Christian group in Birmingham, Alabama, going over to Israel for a tour in which they might make a stop, if that, or maybe no, not even a stop in Palestine. That in itself is a total contradiction of the purpose of their going over there. There are all kinds of ways in which we are cooperating from our taxes. If we pay a single cent to the United States government, a large part of that penny goes to Israel. Can we continue to pay our taxes without saying that we will not pay taxes or stop paying taxes precisely because of what is happening to Palestinians? This is the kind of question I think we need to ask ourselves. And unless we can conceive of far more powerful ways of non-cooperating with our own government, the United States government, to block what you have been describing in terms of the oppression of Israel, I don't think we're going to make any progress at all. The key is threefold, as you described it, but the very special responsibility is here.
I agree with you.
Thanks,
totally.
Jim.
I agree with you totally. I think we need to encourage pilgrimage to the Holy Land, tourists, as well as people who care for justice and peace. And as Christians, you know, my compatriot St. Jerome talk about 5 Gospels. 4 in the New Testament, and the 5th when you visit the land and meet the people. And for me, you are the 6th Gospel. You give different dimension of my faith when you visit. And we need, I think, the activity be more in the States or in Europe to, for example, to boycott everything in the Israeli settlement market, to divest from any company that prolonged the Israeli occupation. And when we talk about sanction, is to empower the weak and to bring the strong to their senses and not to their knees. but I saw a question about also Christian Zionists who are really describing God as a real estate agent and continue with their support to Israel because it is the fulfillment of the prophecy, and picturing God as a tribal God. And they are more dangerous than anything else in Christianity. And also these Christian Zionists with Islamic groups who are extremists and Jewish extremists, they create war for a long time. We need to dispel this. We need to de-theologize the conflict. We need not to look at it as a religious conflict. And I think we need to help those misguided Christians to see the reality by engaging them with local Palestinian Christians, Muslims, and Jewish Voices for Peace.
Thank you, Zoughbi, for all of that. So Zoughbi, Ched Myers has a question for you. It looks like he wrote me directly. Remember Ched from the conference we were at? And yeah, of course. Okay, so he wants to know if you would please talk about whether you are seeing fewer people, and he adds that as international solidarity, people like us, being able these days to get to the WEAM Center. So can you see people, number one, and can you talk just a little bit, we only have about 15 minutes left, about what programs WEAM is experimenting with now?
You know, luckily we are having lots of groups coming to WEAM. Today, I have a group from Sweden, young.
Wow.
Group. Then also I have another group who came as doctors to be with Palestinian students from Jerusalem University, from different parts of the world. And so we have groups and we address the situation. And some of them are very pro-justice, and some it is a new thing for them, and they change their glasses. They say, we will not see the conflict as we used to see. There is a kind of change to listen, to have first-hand knowledge from the resources itself. And we are engaged in citizen diplomacy more than before. Almost we arrange around 10 groups program from A to Z through WEAM. We take them all around to Jenin, to Nablus, to Hebron, the old city, and to meet with Palestinians and Israeli human rights as well. So it is really very important to see these groups to come and be part of the witness. So WEAM is very active in citizen diplomacy, or we call it people to people, where we are not only taking them to the holy stones, holy places, but to meet with the living stones also, and to be introduced to the socio-economic political rolling stones, to see the reality, to see it by their own eyes. And this by itself, another dimension of the struggle of the international community through the help of the local Palestinians who give them their experience and tell their stories. So we are active in that. We have also hospitality for individuals who come to WEAM. They saw a sign, come and see and act. And please come for a cup of coffee or for a meal or for a chat on the situation. Almost every day, 3 to 10 individuals, and sometimes a group of a family will come, and we witness for them, and we are hospitable to them. And this kind of a new way of communicating with others from the different corners of the world. Besides that, WEAM is focusing on women activities, and we focus on UN 1325, Women, Security, and Peace. And we have programs in different places in the West Bank, in Hebron, Jericho, Nablus, Ramallah. And we work with women on CEDAW, the Convention on Elimination of All Discrimination Against Women. And we network with other women and development organizations to exert pressure on the Palestinian Authority to endorse the family protection law. So we are working with women and from the village, from the city, from the camp, and also we offer psychosocial consultation for them, besides different economic empowerment program for them.
Very good. Zoughbi, thank you. I know we only have maybe 10 more minutes, unfortunately, but let me ask David Hartso, who has his hand raised. Go ahead, David. He's a longtime activist here. You might know him.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Zoughbi, for your life and all you do. My question is similar to Marie's. Do young people see a viable alternative nonviolent means of active resistance to the Israeli occupation?
To be frank with you, it is not easy to work with the young people and to be committed to nonviolence. And there are different trends among young people. A good number of them would like to immigrate and leave because they couldn't tolerate it. They don't have jobs. They don't have jobs that pay them well, and they don't see future here. So many would like to immigrate. Others wouldn't like to be political at all. Third, some would like, as much as they are against weapons, they are against also the military and the people using weapons here. They are against the occupation, but also they don't want to see Palestinians resort to weapons. So a good number of them would like to be committed to nonviolent activities, and they don't call it nonviolent activities, they call it popular resistance. And some a fringe of them really go to drugs and alcoholism. And a good number also, I mean, good number, what do I mean? Good number, they would like to see armed struggle. They say, since we are dying, why not to take some others with us to die from the other side? And they see that Israel was created by force, continue to subjugate us by force, why not to use force against them? So different trends in our society, and you know, you don't know what will be next, because Israel in the past, when they see a good number of Palestinians resist using armed struggle, they will assassinate the leader. Now, these young people are acting on their own. So there is no leader for them. There are groups here and there. But at the end, I think all the young people would like to live and to celebrate life.
Thank you, Zoughbi. I'm going to call on, and we're getting close to the end now, call on Sue, my friend Sue from England.
Oh, thank you so much. So lovely to hear you, Zoughbi. And I hang my head in shame, I have to, as a Brit. We've been so complicit with your problems from the beginning. But my question is, what are your views about the initiative started by leaders in Palestine 48, combined with pro-Palestinian Israeli Jews, the one democratic state solution? What are your views about the possibilities of that?
I support that. I think if it is based on equal citizenship and to be treating all of us equally, I support that. But the problem is the state of Israel will not allow it. The state of Israel even don't want to see the Palestinians inside Israel. And I think sometimes I say, if I am in a powerful position, can advise the Palestinian Authority, I will dismantle the Palestinian Authority and ask the Palestinians to struggle fund for one secular, democratic, binational state. The PLO, when it was founded, it was hoping that to create a secular, democratic state for Jews, for Muslims, for Christians. The problem is Israel does not want to wed us or separate from us. Since we are not all Catholics, we are for divorce. But the problem is the Israeli would like a divorce in a patriarchal society that it will control us with matrix of control. And this will lead to apartheid. You know, the Israeli right wing believe in one state and they would like to practice apartheid on us. We want two states that will pave the way for one secular, democratic, binational state. Could be federated, confederated, could be even we can dream for Benelux in the Middle East. I think with this new Jewish right-wing government, they don't want to have any solution. And Israel is dealing with us either captive market, cheap labor, or garbage dump.
Zoughbi, and friends, I know there's many questions we could all ask. There's lots I'd like to ask. But I don't think we can let you go without asking a word about I4. So Zoughbi is now the new president of the global largest peace and nonviolence group in the world, which Gandhi and Dr. King were active parts of. And just give us a little word about it and what I4, how I4 is doing, and the International Fellowship of Reconciliation, and where folks can learn more about it.
We are trying to reorganize ourselves and to give hope to different parts of the world, because we are living in a global village. And we should be active more in struggling against the wars everywhere, against slavery, against colonialism, and to embark on interfaith dialogue, and not to be a dialogue for photo opportunity or for lip service. And at this moment, we are building again our groups, our committees. We have very active African chapter. We have people active in different places in Japan and some in Latin America. We have some difficulties, but thank heavens we are in better shape than before. We have a program on conscientious objectors who against the war. And we have active chapters in Israel and other places. I think one difficulty that we face, not a lot of resources there to get the leadership to meet together, because many times the Zoom solves the problem, but also we need to be together and to hire people to do lots of work, whether for fundraising, for advocacy, for the office to run in a more, cooperative approach. I hope that the coming months will arrange our home much more neatly, but at the game, we are trying to see hope again and again, because I believe I4 and Pax Christi and different groups are really giving us and enhancing our hope, empower us in our walk, talk our actions, and so on. And so there is a new leadership and representing from all corners of the world. And we have different committees, you know, and we see more work slowly but surely.
Zoughbi,
We
that's a
are-
beautiful note. Thank
we
you.
are in the footsteps of people like you and many of the people who have been good examples for us, who have light the road for us, illuminate the future for us, and we hope to continue in your footsteps to achieve justice and peace everywhere.
Well, we're all deeply, deeply grateful, Zoughbi, for the time you've given us. Let's offer a round of applause and our deep thanks and blessings to our dear brother, Zoughbi. Zoughbi, I don't know if you can stay on for a few minutes. My plan would be to end the recording, but if you need to go because it's like midnight over there, that's fine.
No
But
problem.
let me officially end by saying again, Zoughbi, a great thank you on behalf of all your friends here. We've heard your call. Friends, I invite you to share the recording with others, and it'll eventually be on YouTube for free, and you can point it to others there. Zoughbi, I'm going to ask you if you can stay on for a moment about how folks can send you a contribution and to I4. And so with that, friends, I thank you for being here. Before you go, I sign off officially. I have Cornell West coming up on September 9th. Please join me in welcoming Cornell in, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks. He's very excited to come and talk with us and as an agenda. And then after that, Adam Bucko, who has a beautiful book about the contemplative life and nonviolence, and then Catherine Meeks on racial healing and racism, and then Matthew Fox will be here with us, and then Jonathan Montaldo in December, then Brother David Stendel-Rost, hopefully at age 97, will be with us live at Christmas from Salzburg. And then you may have seen that there's a big new fabulous 1,000-page biography of Martin Luther King called King, A Life. And the author is going to join us on Martin Luther King weekend. I'm very excited about that. Jonathan Eag on January 13th. I highly recommend the book, which I've read every word of. And come if you can and meet the great author. So thank you, Zoughbi. We send blessings to you. You've been a blessing to us. God bless you, and may God bless everybody. And we'll see you all next time. I'm just going to stop the recording here. So take care, everybody. God bless.
Thank you. And thank you, John Deere, for everything.